It was supposed to be a routine flight. Flight 267, a red-eye from Honolulu to Los Angeles, was cruising at 36,000 feet over the vast Pacific. Passengers had just finished their in-flight meals, lukewarm chicken teriyaki or a vegetarian pasta, that no one really liked, but everyone accepted as part of the flying experience. The hum of the engines created a lullaby effect, lulling babies and adults alike into a shallow sleep. The cabin lights had dimmed to a soft amber glow. Flight attendants were beginning their final walkthroughs, and the captain had recorded smooth. Skies ahead. Asterisk in seat 12C sat Tessa Harper, 35 years old, hoodie pulled up, noise-canceling headphones on, and her head leaning slightly against the plastic wall of the cabin. She looked like just another tired tourist returning home. No one around her knew that she wasn't just a passenger. Not really. She was a commercial airline pilot for a commercial, technically. She hadn't flown in nearly a year, not since taking a sabbatical following her mother's death. The skies had become a little too lonely. The cockpit, once her sanctuary, now echoed with absence. Asterisk she'd booked this trip to escape the emotional fog that had been hanging over her like a low-pressure system. The beaches of Hawaii had helped. A little, but she was tired. More than tired, drained. She wanted to get home, take a hot shower, and maybe finally sleep without dreams. Asterisk suddenly, a loud metallic bang echoed through the fuselage. People jolted upright. The plane dipped just a bit at first, but enough to knock over a drink. Cup and send a child's toy sliding down the aisle. Asterisk. Did we hit turbulence? A voice asked nervously. Asterisk before anyone could answer. A violent shudder rolled through the aircraft, accompanied by a screeching noise metal, unnatural, and piercing. The plane tilted hard to the left, sending trays, laptops, and phones flying. Asterisk screams erupted. Overhead bins popped open. A woman clutched the seat in front of her, her knuckles white. A man tried to shield his child as a bag fell from above. The flight attendants were caught off guard, one stumbling into a seat and grabbing the armrest to stay upright. Then came the intercom. "This is your captain." The voice was shaky, as if underwater. "We are experiencing static. No follow-up. No instructions. Just dead air. Asterisk. Tessa sat up straight, pulling her headphones off. Her training kicked in, fast. The noise wasn't normal. The dip wasn't normal. And the silence definitely not normal. Asterisk. She reached up and turned. On the cabin reading light above her. Across the aisle, people were beginning to panic in earnest. Oxygen masks hadn't deployed yet, but the energy had shifted entirely. The plane leveled out briefly, and began to tremble again. The engine hum sounded uneven now, like one was laboring. Asterisk. Someone yelled. "What's happening? Are we crashing?" Asterisk. Stay calm. Please stay seated. A flight attendant shouted, her voice high-pitched and trembling. Asterisk. But the panic was spreading fast. Passengers were reaching for their phones, trying to text loved ones, though there was no signal out here. A toddler was wailing. Another passenger had pulled a hoodie tight over his face and was praying audibly. Asterisk. Tessa unbuckled her seatbelt. Asterisk. A middle-aged woman beside her grabbed her wrist. "What are you doing? Sit down." Asterisk. Tessa looked her in the eyes. "I'm a pilot." She held up her wallet quickly, flipping to an old airline ID. "I need to get to the cockpit." Asterisk. The woman let go. Wide-eyed, silent, Asterisk. Tessa stepped into the aisle, her boots crunching on shattered plastic and spilled pretzels. The plane lurched again. The lights flickered. Another alarm blared, this one louder and more insistent. A red one. Tessa grabbed onto the seatbacks, pushing her way forward. Male flight attendant moved to block her. "Ma'am, Please return to your seat. Asterisk, I'm type-rated for commercial jets, she said urgently, eyes locked on his. You're in trouble. Let me help. Asterisk, the plane dipped again, sharper this time. People screamed. A coffee pot flew from the galley and shattered. Asterisk, the flight attendant hesitated, just long enough for Tessa to sidestep him and move forward. Asterisk, get the cockpit on the intercom. She shouted behind her. Tell them Tessa Harper is coming in. Asterisk, she wasn't even sure if the cockpit crew would recognize her name. Maybe, maybe not. But right now, they didn't have time to care. Asterisk, she reached the locked door. Knocked twice. Then once more. No answer. Asterisk, the flight attendant reached her. They're not responding. Asterisk, Tessa's heart was pounding. Something was very wrong. In her mind, she ran through every possibility. Catastrophic mechanical failure. Pilot incapacitation. Maybe. Both. Override code, she said. What? Asterisk, the emergency cockpit override code. You do have one. He stared at her, uncertain. Another jolt. More screaming. Asterisk. Now. She roared. Asterisk shaking, he entered a 4-digit sequence into the keypad next to the cockpit. There was a beep. Then a pause. Then a click. The door opened. Smoke. Not thick, but there. Electrical. Acrid. Asterisk. The cockpit was dimly lit by emergency. Red backlighting. One of the pilots, the co-pilot, was slumped over, unconscious, his headset dangling. The captain, a grizzled man in his 60s, had sweat streaming down his face. His right arm was hanging limp at his side, and his left hand was frantically moving over the controls. Asterisk, the warning panel was lit up like a Christmas tree. Tessa moved fast. I'm Tessa Harper, former Delta captain. Move. Asterisk, he didn't argue. Just nodded, face pale. Asterisk, Tessa slid into the co-pilot's chair, strapping herself in and scanning the control panel. She didn't even need to ask what was wrong. She saw it. Hydraulic failure. Engine 2 flickering. Stabilizers unresponsive. Autopilot disabled. Altimeter fluctuating. They were losing altitude, and fast. Asterisk, what happened? She asked, flipping the overhead switches and adjusting the manual controls. Asterisk, something blew near the right wing. Took out most of our hydraulics. Lost flap response. We're in free descent. Asterisk, Tessa's fingers danced over the controls. The muscle memory came rushing back. Asterisk, she turned to him. You hurt? Asterisk, dislocated shoulder. Maybe worse. Asterisk, she swallowed hard, then grabbed the headset and pushed it onto her head. Static. She switched channels. Mayday, 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 this is Flight 267 declaring an emergency. Dual engine issues. Hydraulic failure. Request immediate vector to nearest landing strip. Asterisk, the silence on the other end lasted just a moment, then came a reply. Flight 267, Roger, we read you. Stand by. She looked out the window. All she saw was blackness, the ocean beneath. No lights, no land. They were still too far from the coast. Asterisk, she turned to the captain. We're not going to make it to Lax, not like this. Asterisk, he nodded grimly. You got any miracles left in you? She tightened her grip on the yoke. I've got one. Tessa Harper's hands were steady. Her heart was not. Asterisk, the cockpit was a nightmare of flashing reds and blinking yellows, warning alarms screeching intermittently. Her headset buzzed with air traffic control chatter, but she tuned most of it, out-focusing only on the critical. Her fingers moved across the control panel like a pianist in the middle of a complex concerto, instinctive. Fast, precise. Asterisk, the captain sat hunched beside her, pain etched deep into his face, his right arm completely immobile. I can't help you fly, he murmured, grimacing, but I'll call out every checklist you need. Tessa gave him a tight nod. Start with emergency engine stabilization. They worked in sync. One voice, one mind. Even in crisis, the cockpit was its own rhythm, its own world. From the cabin behind them came the muffled sounds of panic children. Crying, a man shouting, someone praying out loud. But none of it reached her. Not fully. Her mind was 10,000 feet ahead of the nose of the aircraft, calculating trajectory, weight, wind speed, remaining thrust. Flight 267. We have you on radar. Came the voice of an air traffic controller from Nevada. Nearest option is Tonopah Airstrip. Abandoned, but the runway is intact. Coordinates locked. Diverting all airspace now. Copy that, Tessa replied, eyes never leaving the gauges. Altitude at 21,000 and falling. We're gliding with one engine partially responsive. 0 flap control. Understood, the controller said. Runway length should suffice for emergency landing. No lighting, no crew. We'll take it. She muted the mic and glanced sideways. We've got one shot. If we overshoot, we'll be planting this bird in the desert. The captain grimaced. You've landed worse. She didn't answer. In the back of her mind, memories she'd long buried threatened to surface her final flight before the sabbatical, when she'd landed a 737 with a bird strike disabled engine in Denver. She'd been hailed as a hero. But that day had ended in a hospital room, standing beside her dying mother, realizing she could fly through anything except grief. Focus. Not now. She shut the memory down like flipping a switch. Beginning slow descent, she said aloud, stabilizing the yoke. Left engine is coughing, but still generating thrust. We lose that. We glide dead. Gear down? The captain asked. Not yet. I want to preserve speed until we're 5 out. He nodded, approving. The next 10 minutes were a silent chess match with physics. Every correction Tessa made had to be perfect. There was no computer assist now. Every yaw, every pitch, every throttle nudge, it was raw flying. The Nevada desert finally came into view, blanketed in moonlight and shadow. Flat, endless, but utterly unforgiving. There, the captain pointed, squinting. Tonopah, 11 o'clock low. Tessa saw it. A faint line of cracked concrete, an old World War II training field, now used only by dust and silence. No lights, no instruments, no second chances. Beginning final approach, she said. Manual everything. The flight attendants, sensing something had changed, began shouting over the intercom for passengers to brace. Some cried, others whispered their goodbyes. One woman started laughing hysterically. In the cockpit, Tessa's breath slowed. Her world narrowed to that strip of ancient asphalt. Flaps non-responsive. Deploying spoilers, she said. Dear? The captain asked again. Tessa waited 2 more seconds, calculating. Gear down. Now? The gear dropped with a groan. And a jolt. Green lights blinked on. Locked. She exhaled. Barely. Altitude. 1,200 feet. Speed. 180 knots too fast. But any slower, and they'd risk a stall. Cutting throttle. The engine sputtered. She feathered it back just enough to hold glide. The aircraft was floating now, moving with grace that belied its wounded state. Then a crosswind. It hit them at the worst time. Sudden and sharp from the north. Wind. Shift, the captain called. Tessa corrected immediately, angling the nose into the wind, balancing the drift. She gritted her teeth as the aircraft tilted. Any overcorrection would throw them off course. Any hesitation would mean a missed runway and the desert beyond. She wrestled the yoke like it was alive, muscles burning. Her pulse thudded in her ears. The runway rushed toward them, a dark streak of salvation in a sea of nothing. Hold. Her steady, the captain murmured. Come on, come on. Seconds stretched like hours. The moment the wheels kissed the concrete, it wasn't a landing, it was a controlled crash. The tires screamed, rubber burning. The plane bounced once, then slammed back down. The brakes weren't responding properly. Reverse thrust. She barked. The left engine gave what it had left, slowing the aircraft, but not enough. They were running out of runway. Tessa pulled the emergency brake lever. Sparks flew. The plane groaned in protest. 50 feet. 30. 10. They stopped. Silence. Utter, total silence. Then a cry. A cheer. A rising wave of disbelief, gratitude, sobbing, and applause. Inside the cockpit, Tessa's hands still gripped. The controls. She wasn't moving. You can breathe now, the captain said softly, smiling through the pain. She looked at him. Her eyes were wide, but dry. Her fingers were shaking. I forgot what that felt like, she whispered. You flew like someone who never did. A knock came at the cockpit door. A flight attendant, teary-eyed, opened it slightly. Tessa, she said, her voice breaking. The passengers want to see you. They think you saved their lives. Tessa stood slowly, her knees weak. When she stepped into the cabin, the sight hit her like a punch to the chest. Strangers just an hour ago were applauding, some standing, some crying, reaching out to touch her shoulder, to say, thank you, to simply witness her. She didn't have the words. She just nodded, gave a small wave, and tried not to cry. The boy from row 9, who had been praying now, clutched a stuffed bear and said, You're like a superhero. Tessa knelt beside him. Superheroes get scared too, she said gently. We just don't stop flying. Later, after emergency vehicles arrived from a nearby town, and buses were called in to transport the passengers, Tessa stood in the cool desert night, looking at the dark shape of the jet silhouetted against the stars. The air was dry, still. The captain approached, his arm now in a sling, painkillers dulling his expression. You ever consider coming back? He asked her. Airline-like. Mine would take you in a heartbeat. Tessa looked up at the sky, then down at her own hands. They were still trembling slightly, but there was something else too. Stillness. Peace. I don't know, she said, but I think I finally want to. He smiled. Well, if today's any proof you were born for it. She nodded. Slowly, the sound of wind brushing past her ears. Maybe she had lost her way. Maybe she'd walked away from the skies, thinking they reminded her too much of who she lost. But tonight proved something she hadn't expected. The sky never stopped. Calling. And this time she was ready to answer.